Since the pandemic, I've become less optimistic about the chances of communities, and people seem lonelier, less connected. Yeah. You know, and I want some optimism. There are over 20,000 Jains living in the UK, a large proportion of which are here in Leicester. This was the first Jain temple in the Western Hemisphere. We've come to speak to some people and learn a little bit more about Jainism.
दर्शनं मोक्ष साधनं मङ्गलं भगवान् वीरो मङ्गलं गौतम प्रभु.
After showing us around the temple, the staff introduced us to a lady called Smita. We wanted to ask her about the three pillars of the religion: ahimsa, non-violence, anekantvad, many-sided reality, and aparigraha, non-attachment.
So you can only have water at the moment? Only water? Wow.
I did a year's fasting. I just finished in May. Alternate days, one day's nothing, one day's 2 meals a day.
Wow.
And now with this 8 days festival, generally me, my brother and my sister-in-law, we're trying to at least minimum 8. But my brother did 16 last year, and my sister-in-law's done 30 before.
No way. Wow.
The essence of Jainism is ahimsa. So ahimsa is non-violence. Non-violence in thought, in action, and in speech. So it is very subtle. I may say Sebastian is a nice guy, but in my mind I'm thinking, oh, he's not. It's not incongruence. Yeah. So what I'm thinking, how I'm behaving, my action and my speech has to be in sync. Because the way Jainism divides the different living organisms is in 5. We all have 5 senses. So a little insect will probably have the sense of hearing and a sense of touch. Plant life has got just a sense of touch. The crow. But all these are living organisms. As a human being, we have the full 5 senses. Yeah. But not only that, on top of that, we have the 6th sense, which is about being ability to think. Yeah. What is right? What is wrong? So therefore, this human life is priceless because it gives us the opportunity to progress to the highest level of price, which is attaining moksha, nirvana. So to free ourselves from being born again and not to have to experience the life's pains and pleasures, but to be in that eternal, permanent bliss.
I wanted to ask you about the second pillar. So ahimsa, then
Anekantvad.
and it's really interesting for us, especially in like the modern world with social media and how sort of vociferous everyone is.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm glad you brought that up because Anekantvad has served me very well in my working career and my daily life. Because Anekantvad means that there is multiple viewpoints. So whenever I take groups here, I always give them the story of the 7 blind men and an elephant. One of the blind men touches his legs and he said, oh, it's thick like a bark of a tree. Another one touches the belly and says it's a very fat one, sort of thing. Another touches the trunk and they're saying, oh, it's long and thin, sort of. So the idea is that none of them were wrong. Everyone from their perspective, whether it's Sebastian, Ollie, your upbringing and your understanding for a particular thing, from your perspective may be different to how I see it. The glass is half full, the glass is half empty. But that doesn't mean to say you're right and I'm wrong. It's very much a combination of all those facets from one's perspectives and experiences is what makes the whole and the truth. So respecting everyone's views and everyone's opinions is paramount. So our parigraha is you're not accumulating more than what you need. because that in itself entices you and takes you away from the karma, the pure soul work that we are supposed to be doing. Yeah. So all the possessions, if you can minimize all that. So fasting, festivals, it's all about trying to get away from the pleasures of the five senses.
Smita then invited us to watch a service that she was participating in.
Last time you ate anything? It was 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
My goodness, and you've still got lots of energy. And
It's so fun.
is it hard at the start?
It is, like, I think the second day is quite a testing day. But then if you survive the second day, then after the third day, I have experienced, and we strongly believe, that there is this external spiritual force who give us that strength to continue. Because we've known doctors like my brother Atul, he did 16 days fasting and he was operating the patients at the same time. So it's a combination
That
of
goes against all sort of wisdom that we believe we have about, you need your breakfast in the morning for the energy.
We've always been brought up to say we have to have proteins, we've got to have all these things, we can't dehydrate and things like that. But yesterday this Ramana Krishan, it was accidental, I came across the link, and he was advocating that fasting for 3 days actually heightens your thinking ability.
Was it your daughter you said that did 30 days? Or
My sister-in-law,
your sister-in-law? 30 days?
30 days.
And that's 30 days with no food?
no food, no
I
drinks,
wouldn't
just
have even
water.
believed that to be possible. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. And I did 8 days without water as well.
With
but
no liquid.
no liquids whatsoever.
What state were you in after your fast? No liquid, no water for
My
8
tongue
days.
and that had gone a bit sore. Because
Did you get headaches? You must have been severely dehydrated.
touch wood, I didn't get headache.
What
But
did
like
you
I s-
do during this fast?
You get so booked and busy because you come to the temple, you do the morning prayer.
Busy time.
Busy
So
times,
8
yeah.
days, no food, no water, and you've still got energy to come here and participate in the ceremonies and speak to people. Gosh, I think I'd just be led in a bed somewhere doing nothing.
A lot of Jain things and Jain concepts, people find it hard to even contemplate. But if you were to talk to people in India, 30 days has become a norm now. Yeah, 16 days, 8 days is just nothing. We had a monk who fasted for 6 months, just water. You say you're a Jain, and a lot of the times people may not have always heard of it. So how I always explain is people have, most of the times have heard of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi learned the principle of non-violence to fight for India's independence. Ahimsa, non-violence without any arms and ammunition, and he learned that from Jainism. And he'd come back from South Africa a little bit torn from Hinduism and not knowing. And in 20 minutes, they had 28 questions, and Srimad Rachanji explained and answered it questions. And that's when he learned about ahimsa and non-violence. And so I always use that as a principle to explain to people.
A lot of other religions, they find the need to constantly spread the message. Is Jainism like that?
Jainism isn't like that per se. But nowadays, whatever we are observing in terms of this climate change, in terms of veganism, vegetarianism, we feel that Lord Mahavira and the Jainism has a lot to contribute and offer. So therefore, we do feel, and I do strongly feel, that it would be good to share, not to change people, but to share the concepts that we have. Climate change is talking about less is more. Aparigraha, less accumulation, just use what is needed. So these principles that we've got are just so well placed in terms of sharing the message of what we know.
person you were talking about before that follows the sort of the rules more vigorously, you would consider that person on a higher level in the path to moksha than you. Is that right? Or is it not as black and white as that?
It's not as black and white as that. He'll probably be committing less, but every time it depends on the intention inside. Yeah, so it's not about an outwardly activity. Yeah, if I'm saying, oh, I don't want to do this, but I'm doing it, I'm not going to get the merit that I would have done otherwise for having done it with that depth and courage of conviction.
Do you think it's possible for someone to follow this sort of pure Jain lifestyle without ever having heard of Jainism?
Oh yes. Our caretaker here, Robert, unfortunately we lost him during the pandemic. Robert had worked with us for 30 years, and he was the most content fellow I'd ever known. He taught me more about Jainism and my principles. He never wanted anything. He was supposed to come for 8 hours, and he always came early, and he always went late. And then even his possessions were probably next to nothing. And he had such contentment. So all the aparigraha, materialism, no ego, helping, just the minimum food, just whatever, limited clothes. I find that he taught me more about Jainism, even though he wasn't a Jain, and he may not have realized it. So the thing is that we know these things, but there is laziness, there is tomorrow syndrome sometimes, and there is this which refrains us from practicing it as well. But other people who may not know the principle are probably practicing it much better than us as Jains. Sorry to say.
With a lot of the issues of sort of like sustainability and harming life and things, I think this is sort of like innate within us that we know these things, but we don't have any direction, we don't have anybody kind of pushing us and saying, this is what you need.
That's $1 million. You've summed it, what I've been trying to say for the last few minutes, that we all need that push. And in India, the monks and nuns do a great job, because you go to the temple or to see them, and they will encourage you. They'll give you a vow. So it stays uppermost in your mind to observe. Yeah. Whereas here, if a mind isn't strong, and no one to guide you on a day-to-day basis, it just falls by the by. But you're right, innately we all know overeating is not good. We all know overconsumption is not good. But it's just that we are so engrossed in our day-to-day life of living, doing great, becoming that number one, and in our studies, that we're conditioned to be measured by whether I'm driving a Ferrari or a Bentley, rather than whether Smita is good at heart.
I feel like the UK especially lacks this sort of, the thing that religion gives, because even in Italy, with a pretty Catholic country, there still is those traditions of the family and those values that are important. And I feel like in the UK, because of the lack of religion, it means that people are kind of a little bit lost, and they don't hear these things enough. Do you see that in the UK?
I find that in UK religion is, and if you say you're religious, it's always been seen as not welcomed. But the other side of the coin might well be that a lot of these people are probably now practicing it. So the 2 or 3 examples I gave about Robert and others, rather than going to a church, they're actually probably living those good neighborly 10 commandments and principles, perhaps in their day-to-day life, that may not always be visible. So I find that people per se have a lot to offer in so many ways, but as you rightly said, we have so many other day-to-day pressures of living. We have television, we have Netflix, we have all these things that are taking us away from some of the goodness that you've said that it's innate amongst us.
Me personally, I'm so pessimistic at the moment. Since the pandemic, I've become less optimistic about the chances of communities, and people seem lonelier, less connected. You know, and I want some optimism.
Yeah, it's absolutely so good that you've come out with that, Sebastian, for the simple reason that the other thing that I've been feeling for the best part of 6 months, that I don't want to live on this world. I just want to emigrate to the moon. We are just expecting far too much of our politicians. We don't want to own responsibility and take duty ourselves. We feel everybody else owes us a living. Everybody just thinks that it's our right to be given ABC and to be wearing Nike shoes. We are just continuously complaining as humans. And I just felt that if the moon was there for me to get to, honest to God, I've been saying everybody, I would have just gone there. Because I'm, I mean, as you saw, I'm so limited in how I'm talking. And my vocabulary, you know, when I read some of these things, I feel, gosh, I don't know anything. So I apologize. And in my true Jain sense, during this festival of forgiveness, if I have made any mistakes in how I've communicated, or if I've misinterpreted anything, or if I've expressed my views that may cause upset to anybody, then I ask for sincere, humble apologies. Michami Dukla.
I heard about Jainism when I was a child. I remember, but I remember it being this sort of like seen as a crazy religion. You know, or they look after ants, and they will care about all this. And I thought, this sounds really strange. And after reading about it and then speaking to you here, it's like, how can anybody say that when it's just such a lovely ideas, especially just the 3 pillars. I mean, you could tell everybody about that in the country, and I think it would just make a better world, wouldn't it? Yeah. Especially the second one, and I can't pronounce it.
Anekantva.
That one, that especially. I mean, in terms of the dialogue at the moment and social media and everybody just shouting and nobody listening, that I think is such an interesting.
It's helped me throughout my life.
Yeah.
Both in my career as a manager and throughout, I just find it's really helped me to.
I think that might be how we get back on track. Generally, society.
Yeah.
Just understanding that and not forcing one's personal opinion on
But
everyone.
I think what's remarkable is you could put forward a case for Jainism and convince a lot of people without even mentioning the word Jainism.
Yes, that is absolutely spot on.
And that's I think that's unique to all the religions I know, which is really incredible.
Yeah.
Darshanam swarga sopanam Darshanam